It was one of those spring Fridays that carried just enough warmth to make you hopeful. I'd gotten out of work 2 hours early, nothing big, just a lucky break on the logistics side. A shipment had been rerouted cleanly, and for once, everything went according to plan. I figured I'd use the time to surprise Emily. Grab dinner from that Thai place she liked, maybe pick up a bottle of the Spanish Red we'd had on our last anniversary. We hadn't spent a full evening together in weeks. Her hours had picked up, or so she said, and our schedules just stopped syncing. When we did talk, it was mostly about bills, her work stress, and how tired we both were. I figured a quiet night and could bring some of that spark back. Maybe I was naive, or maybe I was just trying too hard to fix something I didn't fully realize was already broken. By the time I pulled into the lot, the sky was glowing, that kind of gold you only get for 5 minutes before sunset. I remember thinking how peaceful it looked, how homey. Like I was walking into a photo from our first year of marriage. Familiar. Safe. But when I opened the door, that feeling shattered. First, the smell. Wine. Heavy. Not the bottle we had from New Year's, it was something stronger, maybe older, something fancy. Second, the sound, low music, slow jazz, the kind she used to put on when we were having one of those nights. Except I hadn't heard that playlist in a long time. The third thing I noticed was the jacket. Draped casually on the back of the dining chair. Not hers. Too short. Black leather. Definitely not mine. I stepped all the way in and kicked off my boots. That's when I saw them. Sneakers. Men's. Size 11, maybe 12. Scuffed but not worn out. Parked neatly by the door like someone lived there. Like someone thought they belonged. For a full second, I didn't move. I just stared. My mind went blank. Not because I was scared, because I was trying to convince myself that this wasn't what it looked like. I heard her laugh. Soft. An asterisk mate. From the kitchen. And a man's voice followed. I couldn't make out what he said, but it was low, close, like he was standing near her. Too near. I didn't call out. I didn't make a sound. I just walked down the hallway toward the kitchen, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I turned the corner, there she was. Emily stood by the counter, holding 2 glasses of wine. She turned when she saw me. Her expression didn't change. No surprise. No guilt. Just a casual, slightly amused smile, like I'd come home from the store instead of stumbling into something I wasn't meant to see. Hey babe, she said as if nothing was off. You're home early. There was only 1 glass in her hand now. The other sat on the kitchen island. Half drunk. Lipstick smeared the rim. She noticed me looking at it. Chris stopped by, she said quickly. From work. He needed to drop off a flash drive. My gaze shifted from her to the wine glass again. She was still holding the second one, like she expected me to take it. Like we were about to start a date night. We were just talking through next week's schedule, she added, voice smooth, almost rehearsed. I looked past her. The back door was open slightly, wide enough that someone could have slipped out quietly. No footsteps, no goodbyes. Did you see him in the hallway? She asked. He must have just left. I shook my head slowly. No. I didn't. She didn't blink. We wrapped up about 5 minutes ago. He didn't want to bother you. I looked back at the wine glass. Then at the open door. There were so many things I could have said. So many ways I could have demanded an explanation. But I just nodded. Took the glass from her. Held it in my hand. I didn't drink it. I'm not proud of how quiet I was in that moment. But there was something about the way she said it, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Like this wasn't the first time she'd needed a cover story. She didn't look nervous. If anything, she looked calm. Too calm. Like she believed the moment would pass if she played it cool enough. Like I wouldn't connect the dots if she said the right words in the right tone. And maybe 6 months ago, I wouldn't have. Maybe I would have believed it really was a colleague dropping off a flash drive. Maybe I would have laughed it off, kissed her on the cheek, and opened the fridge looking for leftovers. But not that night. That night, something clicked. Or maybe it cracked. The music in the background changed to another smooth jazz track, but I wasn't listening anymore. My ears were ringing. My hands were still. And my mind was racing, not with suspicion, but with memory. The week before, she'd gone to a conference dinner that ran until almost midnight. The month before that, I found a random text notification on her lock screen from someone saved as J. No emoji. Just, when are you free next? And when I'd asked her, she brushed it off, said it was a work contact, said I was being paranoid. Now, I wasn't so sure. Emily turned and set the wine bottle down, then leaned against the counter like she was expecting conversation. Rough day? She asked. I nodded again. Still didn't speak. My throat was dry. Everything okay? She asked after a moment, tilting her head. I met her gaze. For the first time in a long while, I actually looked. And I didn't recognize her. Her face was the same, but the way she held herself, the subtle defensiveness in her stance, the way her fingers tapped against the counter, it wasn't the woman I married. It was someone wearing her face, reciting her lines. "It's fine," I said finally. "Just tired." She smiled, satisfied, and turned back toward the fridge. The conversation moved on like nothing happened. She started talking about dinner. About some new series she wanted to watch. She even asked if I'd want to go hiking on Sunday, like everything between us was still normal. But it wasn't. I stared at the wine glass in my hand, the lipstick now smudging the stem where I'd gripped it too hard. I set it down carefully on the table. That night, I didn't sleep next to her. Said I had some work to finish and crashed on the couch. She didn't argue. She never asked why. It's funny how hindsight works. You don't realize how many puzzle pieces were lying around until someone shows you the box top. After that night, after the jacket, the sneakers, the wine, everything that used to seem normal started to look different. Not just different. Suspicious. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I needed space to think, to sort through the mess without lighting a fire I couldn't put out. But that space? It became a microscope. And under it, the smallest cracks looked like fault lines. I started remembering things I'd brushed off, little moments I'd buried under the assumption that trust was unshakable. But now, they played back in my mind with sharp clarity. There was that time 2 months ago when she took a girls' trip to Denver. Emily and I aren't big on flying separately. We always preferred road trips, but she insisted it was a short getaway with coworkers. I remember how she packed in a hurry, barely letting me help. I thought she was just excited. But now I remember her checking the Uber app like she was racing a clock. I remember that the hotel receipt she left on the counter afterward had a king bed listed, not 2 queens like she claimed. And then there were the phone calls. Emily used to answer her phone around me even if it was just to say, "Hey, I'll call you back." But over the past few months, she started taking calls in the bathroom. With the door closed. Sometimes for 20-30 minutes. And when I'd ask, she'd say it was work, her boss, an upset client, someone from the shipping department who needed discreet handling. That explanation worked once. Maybe twice. But every time? And the voice, she always kept it low when she was in there. Like she didn't want me to hear her laugh. Or maybe what made her laugh. I remember one night, she came out of the bathroom flushed, smiling at her phone. I asked what was so funny and she said, "Just Megan being ridiculous." But when I asked if I could see, she suddenly accidentally deleted the text. It didn't feel like anything back then. Now it feels like everything. And then there was the laptop incident. A few weeks ago, I was using her computer to look up a tracking number for a shipment. She'd left it open, and as I typed in the search bar, an autocomplete suggestion popped up. Cheap hotels downtown. I raised an eyebrow and clicked back to see the recent history. Just as I started scrolling, she walked in. She didn't yell, didn't panic. She just walked over calmly and said, "Don't snoop." I was looking that up for Megan. Her sister's coming into town and needed a last-minute place. Again with Megan. Megan was becoming the Swiss Army excuse. I didn't press. I didn't want to seem paranoid. But the next day, the browser history was wiped clean. Every last site. And there was something else, something smaller, but it sticks with me now. About a month ago, I noticed what I thought was a hickey on her collarbone. I joked about it. Said, "Since when do you bruise like a teenager?" She laughed awkwardly and told me it was an allergic reaction from a new fabric softener. Fabric softener. At the time, I bought it. Hell, I even double-checked the detergent aisle next time we went shopping together to make sure we got the hypoallergenic stuff. She'd smiled and nodded like I was being sweet. Looking back, I feel like a chump. It's not that she was a good liar. Emily was never great at lying. But I was great at trusting. And that made all the difference. Even our routines had changed. She used to bring me coffee every Sunday morning, just a silly tradition we started when we were dating. She'd add way too much creamer to mine, and I'd pretend to be annoyed, and we'd laugh about it while watching reruns of Parks and Rec. But lately? Nothing. No coffee. No laughter. No interest in reruns. She blamed work stress. Said her project was overwhelming, that she needed time to decompress alone. I gave her space, thinking I was being supportive. But now I think she was using that space to create distance. Maybe even to disappear. Once I started paying attention, I noticed something else. She started hiding her screen more. Whenever I'd walk by while she was on her phone or laptop, she'd tilt it away or switch tabs so fast you'd think she was working for the NSA. One night, I walked in while she was on her phone in bed. She flinched, literally flinched, and locked it so fast I barely saw anything. I asked, "Everything okay?" She smiled. "Yeah, just some dumb meme Megan sent." Megan again. I started to wonder if Megan even knew how many things she was supposedly responsible for. Maybe I should have called her myself and asked if she really existed. The most damning part wasn't even a moment, it was a change in energy. Emily stopped being present. Even when she was home, she wasn't really here. Her eyes were always somewhere else, on her phone, on the clock, out the window. When I tried to talk, she'd nod, say, uh-huh, a lot, and then immediately forget what I said. It wasn't neglect. It was detachment. Intentional. One night, after she went to bed early with the excuse of a migraine, I sat in the dark living room and just thought. No TV, no phone, just me, the couch, and the sound of the fridge humming. That's when I realized this wasn't in my head. People love to say you're just being paranoid, like it's some kind of cure-all. But your gut? It's not dumb. It remembers. It stores everything you've ignored and feeds it back to you when the pieces start to click. And now all those pieces were forming a shape I didn't want to see. She was hiding something. Maybe someone. And I'd let it happen by refusing to look closely. The part that really messed me up was this: once you start doubting someone you love, every memory becomes a minefield. You start wondering which version of them was real. You think back on every smile, every touch, and you ask yourself, was that love, or was that just convenience? And maybe the worst question of all, when did I stop being enough? That thought haunted me more than anything else. Over the next few days, I stopped trying to bring things up. I just watched, listened, waited. I started writing things down, little details, moments that felt off. Not because I was building a case, but because I needed to see it on paper. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I began to replay every business dinner she went to without me. Every late night she claimed was due to office fires. Every time she said she was working from home and then forgot to respond to texts for hours. There was a night she came home with wet hair, said she took a late swim at the gym. But I checked. Her gym didn't have a pool. That was the night I realized I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I was waiting for confirmation. And it was coming. I didn't plan to see it. Not that day, not like that. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind that starts with burned toast and an inbox full of nonsense. I had an early meeting, but I arrived at the office ahead of schedule around 7:45. I remember the sky was that dull gray, the kind that makes the whole day feel stuck on pause. The office was mostly empty, just a few people trickling in. I took the back entrance near the conference rooms faster than walking around, and that's when I saw them. Through the glass wall of conference room C. At first, I just saw movement, two figures sitting close together at the far end of the table. I didn't think anything of it. But then I saw her. Emily. My wife. And she wasn't sitting in a chair. She was sitting on someone's lap. His name was Chris. The same Chris who dropped off a flash drive that night at our apartment. The same Chris whose shoes were left by her door. The same name she'd said with a casual shrug, like he was just another face in her office. But he wasn't just another face. He was holding her. His hands were around her waist and her head was resting on his shoulder. Her back was to me, so she didn't see me approach. But he did. His eyes met mine through the glass. The change was instant. His face went pale and he whispered something in her ear. Emily turned and locked eyes with me. I saw the realization hit her like a wave. She jumped off his lap so fast, she knocked over a water bottle on the table. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. She stepped toward the door, mouth open, like she was about to explain. I didn't give her the chance. I just walked away. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't raise my voice. I went straight to my desk, sat down, and opened my laptop like nothing had happened. But inside, something broke. Not like a dramatic snap. More like a slow, quiet shatter. An hour later, she texted me. Emily, can we talk? Emily, please. It's not what you think. Emily, I swear I can explain. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. What was there to explain? What angle could she possibly use to reframe what I saw with my own eyes? By the time I got home that evening, she was already waiting. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap like she was preparing for a job interview. Ryan, she started. Her voice was soft, shaky but not panicked. I made a mistake. She didn't even try to deny it. I nodded slowly, standing in the doorway with my jacket still on. I didn't mean for you to find out that way, she continued. It wasn't supposed to. I wasn't going to. God, I don't even know where to start. She finally looked up at me, eyes red, makeup smeared just enough to show she'd been crying. And for a moment, a split second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I don't want excuses, I said calmly. Just be honest. How long? Her eyes dropped to the floor. She twisted the hem of her sleeve around her fingers like she was trying to tie herself to something solid. About 3 months, she whispered. 3 months. Longer than I'd feared. Long enough for it to be more than a fling. Long enough for it to be deliberate. I didn't mean to hurt you, she added quickly. It started, I don't even know how. We were just talking after meetings, and then one night we had drinks, and it just happened. It just happened? I repeated, my voice quieter than before. So you accidentally fell into his lap this morning? That one hit her. She flinched like I'd slapped her. No, that wasn't an accident. That was, I don't know, a moment of weakness. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. No, Emily. Cheating once might be a moment of weakness. Carrying on an affair for 3 months? That's a decision. Over and over again. She didn't answer. Just sat there, the silence growing heavier between us. I don't hate you, I said after a long pause. But I don't know who you are anymore. Her eyes welled up. I still love you, Ryan. I believed her. That was the most messed up part. I think she did love me in her own way. But love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't lie to your face, sneak around behind your back, and use your living room like a rendezvous point. What were you going to do? I asked. Just keep pretending? Keep letting him come over when I wasn't home? Her voice cracked. I didn't plan any of this. I just felt lost. And Chris, he listened to me. He made me feel seen. There it was. He made her feel seen. Like I hadn't spent the past 8 years of my life seeing her, loving her, supporting her career, picking up the slack when she was too tired, standing by her through every family fight, every late-night breakdown, every rough patch. But sure, some guy with a decent jawline and a bottle of Cabernet saw her for who she really was. I gave you everything, I said, not angry, just tired. And you gave him the parts of yourself you should have protected. Emily stood up, crossed the room, and reached for my hand. I stepped back. Don't, I said. Not right now. She stopped, arms dropping to her sides. I can't lose you, she whispered. You already did, I replied. You just haven't felt it yet. She started crying hard this time. Not performative, not subtle, just raw, unfiltered grief. But it didn't move me. I'd already started grieving weeks ago. I just didn't know what I was mourning yet. She tried again, blurting out promises. We can fix this. I'll cut him off. I'll do therapy. Whatever it takes. I shook my head. You should have said that before you climbed into his lap. Not after. I left her standing there and went into the bedroom. Packed a duffel bag. A few shirts, chargers, my laptop. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I wasn't staying. Not tonight. She followed me to the door. Her voice cracked again. Please don't go. I turned to her. I don't know what she expected to see. Regret? A second chance? All I said was, I don't trust you, and I don't know if I ever will again. Then I closed the door behind me. That night, I slept in my car. Not because I had to. I could have gotten a room or called a friend. But I needed to feel everything. Alone, honest, unfiltered. I reclined the seat and stared at the ceiling, trying to remember when things started to change, where I missed the signs, how I could have prevented this. But deep down, I knew the truth. I didn't fail. I didn't fall short. She did. And no amount of backpedaling, crying, or wine-soaked confessions could make that go away. The next morning, I didn't go home. Instead, I sat in a diner on the edge of town, the kind that still smelled like burnt coffee and pancake syrup at 10 a.m. I'd slept maybe 2 hours in the car. My body was wrecked, but my mind was crystal clear. No more guessing. No more hoping she'd change. The truth had done what it always does. It cut clean through the lies. Emily had cheated, lied, gaslit, and now she wanted forgiveness like it was a transaction, like we could shake hands and reset. But I couldn't go back. I didn't even know what back meant anymore. Around 11, my phone buzzed for the third time. Her name. Again. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the answer button. Then I turned the phone over and set it face down. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. Not yet. Maybe not ever. By noon, I'd booked a rental online, a furnished one-bedroom in the suburbs just outside the city. Month-to-month lease. Nothing permanent. That felt right. I didn't want permanence. I just wanted space. Air. Silence. I went back home once to pack. It was 2 days later. Emily wasn't there when I arrived. She must have gone to her sister's or maybe back to her parents' place. I didn't care. The emptiness of the house was a relief. I walked through the room slowly, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The hallway photos. The little sticky note on the fridge that still said, "Don't forget dog food, love," even though we didn't have a dog. The scent of her perfume still clinging to the throw pillows. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just moved. I packed a single suitcase. A duffel. My passport, birth certificate, the important stuff. A few clothes. A framed photo of my parents and me from when I was a kid. The rest? I left. I didn't want the house. I didn't want to negotiate who got which lamp or who paid off the couch. She could keep it all. She already broke the part that mattered. Even the dog. Charlie. He was technically hers, she'd adopted him before we met. But I walked him every morning. I fed him, trained him, bought him the dumb little raincoat he hated. Still, I left him. I couldn't take him without causing more damage. And maybe honestly, I couldn't stand the idea of him looking at me like he knew something was wrong. Before I left, I walked into the bedroom, our bedroom, and stood at the foot of the bed. The sheets had been changed. New color. New pattern. It felt like someone else's life already. I left my wedding ring on the dresser. Didn't say goodbye to anything. That night, I moved into the rental. It was small. Cold. A little too clean. But it was mine. Mine alone. The silence was loud at first. I could hear the fridge humming, the pipes creaking, the neighbor's dog barking through the thin walls. But after a while, the quiet started to feel like peace. I turned my phone on again the next day. 17 missed calls. 42 messages. A handful of voicemails. All from her. Some were soft, "Please call me. I can explain." Some were frantic, "Are you alive? I'm losing my mind. Please answer." One was angry, "You don't just get to disappear. We're married, Ryan. Grow up." She didn't know it, but that one helped the most. It reminded me why I left. I didn't respond to any of them. For a week, I let the silence speak for me. She kept calling. Then texting. Then emailing. She even showed up once, banged on the front door of the rental for 10 minutes while I sat inside, not moving, barely breathing. Eventually, she left. Later, she sent one final message. "I guess this is who you are now. Coward." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because it wasn't. I wasn't running. I was choosing not to be pulled back into a house built on broken promises. She mistook my silence for indecision. For guilt. Like maybe I was off sulking, waiting to be forgiven. Waiting for her to redeem herself and for us to pick up where we left off. But the silence? It wasn't weakness. It was me drawing the line. Every message she sent trying to fix things, every voicemail pleading for closure, it all came from the same place. A refusal to accept the finality of what she'd done. She thought love was elastic. That it could stretch and snap back. That betrayal could be wrapped in a tearful apology and stuffed back into the box. But love doesn't survive like that. Not the real kind. Not the kind you build your whole world around. I spent those days sitting on the small balcony of my new place, watching the sun set behind an old strip mall. It wasn't scenic, but it felt honest. I sipped lukewarm coffee, stared at the sky, and tried to remember who I was before I spent my life being someone's husband. Turns out I missed that guy. The one who laughed easily. The one who read books just because. The one who didn't have to second-guess if a half-empty glass of wine was evidence. One evening I pulled out the photo album I'd taken with me. Childhood photos. Summer camp. My parents hugging me after my college graduation. Pages that had nothing to do with her. Nothing to do with lies. Just me before I was us. That's when I decided. There would be no going back. No big speech. No dramatic confrontation. No attempt to fix what was already in pieces. I wouldn't respond to her messages. I wouldn't show up to talk. I wouldn't explain why I left. My silence was the explanation. Some people think forgiveness is closure. For me, it was distance. It had been about a month since I'd last seen Emily in person. I hadn't planned on seeing her again, at least not anytime soon. I was doing everything I could to stay in my own lane, go to work, hit the gym, cook dinner, sleep, repeat. I kept my head down. No social media. No peeking at her Instagram stories. No asking mutual friends how she was doing. But the world doesn't always let you live in your bubble, especially when the wreckage you're trying to escape still exists in the same city. The invite came through a company email. Some charity gala our logistics firm sponsored every year. Normally, I would have ignored it. Fancy events weren't my thing, and I wasn't in the mood to put on a suit and pretend I cared about silent auctions or overpriced wine. But this time, something told me to go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was pride. Or maybe deep down, I knew I needed to look her in the face one last time, not to get answers, but to make sure I didn't want any. I arrived late. I parked on a side street and walked in through the back entrance. The event was held at the Downtown Arts Center, tall ceilings, polished floors, everything echoing just a little too much. People in cocktail attire milled about, talking in hushed voices like they were in a museum. I straightened my blazer, grabbed a drink from a passing waiter, and kept to the edge of the room. That's when I saw her. She was standing under the chandelier near one of the sponsor booths. Her dress was dark green, deep and elegant, like it had been chosen to make a statement. Her hair was pinned back, makeup clean and deliberate. She looked composed, collected, like none of it ever happened. And next to her? Chris. He was smiling that corporate smile, the one that never quite reaches the eyes. Hand in his pocket, shoulders back like he was the main character of some bland office drama. He looked too at ease, too comfortable next to her. Emily said something, and they both laughed. She touched his arm lightly as she did. It was subtle, nothing inappropriate. But to me, it was everything. That one gesture confirmed what I already knew. Whatever guilt she'd expressed, whatever apologies she'd offered, they had expired. She'd moved on. Or at least, she was trying to. They hadn't expected to see me. I stood half-shielded behind a tall floral arrangement near the bar, and for a few moments I just watched. Not with jealousy, not with heartbreak, but with a kind of hollow distance. She caught sight of me first. Her expression faltered just slightly, less than a second, but I saw it. A flash of surprise, maybe discomfort. Then she straightened, whispered something to Chris, and started walking toward me. I didn't move. "Ryan," she said as she approached. Her voice was smooth, like she'd practiced this. "Emily." She hesitated. "I didn't know you were coming tonight." "Didn't know you'd be here either," I replied. We stood there for a moment, two people in formal wear, speaking like polite acquaintances instead of what we really were, two halves of a broken marriage. Chris walked up behind her. "Hey, man," he said with a nod, way too casual. "Good to see you out." I looked at him. I didn't smile. Didn't realize this event had a +1 policy for +1s. He froze, the friendly expression slipping slightly. Emily jumped in. "Chris is just here representing his department. It's not what it looks like." I didn't reply. I just turned back to her, raised an eyebrow, and sipped my drink. She hated that look. It was the one I used when I knew someone was lying but wanted to let them dig their own hole. "Ryan," she said, her tone softening. "Please. I didn't come here to make a scene." "Neither did I said. That might have been the end of it. We could have nodded awkwardly, walked in opposite directions, and called it a night. But then she made the mistake. A tall man in a navy suit approached our group, Emily's new boss, from what I overheard. She turned and introduced us. "This is Ryan. An old friend." Old friend. My stomach clenched. Chris didn't react. Maybe he was used to it. Maybe that's what she told people now, that I was just someone she used to know. A footnote in her story. A friendly ghost? Emily's boss extended his hand to me. "Nice to meet you, Ryan." "Any friend of Emily's?" I shook his hand, cutting him off. "I'm not a friend. I'm her husband. Or was. Until she and Chris here gave me a reason not to be." The air went still. Emily went pale. Chris looked like he wanted to disappear into his tie. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I said it calm, cool, and loud enough for the people nearby to hear. No more hiding. No more letting them control the narrative. Emily grabbed my arm. "Ryan. Don't." I pulled away. "Don't what? Tell the truth? You already did what you did. You just didn't expect me to still have a spine." Her boss awkwardly excused himself. Chris muttered something and backed off too. Emily stared at me, eyes wide. "Why would you do that? Why would you say that in front of him?" "Because I'm done pretending I owe you silence," I said. "You're the one who cheated. You're the one who lied. And now you're standing here with him, introducing me like I'm some guy you used to go to school with." Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no defense. Just shame. Real or rehearsed, I didn't care. "I thought you left to think," she said finally, like that explained everything. "I did," I said. "And I thought while you were thinking you'd realize that loyalty matters more than comfort. But clearly you just moved on." "I didn't move on," she whispered. "It's not like that." I looked her in the eyes. "It is exactly like that." She blinked fast as if trying to stop tears that weren't quite there yet. I thought maybe we could talk again. One day, she said, voice cracking slightly. We are talking, I replied. And I'm saying goodbye. Then I walked away. I didn't look back. Not at her. Not at Chris. Not at the people whispering near the hors d'oeuvre table. As I stepped outside, the night air hit me like a wave. It was colder than I expected. Or maybe it just felt that way because I wasn't carrying the weight anymore. That was the moment I knew for real, without question, it was over. And I didn't want it back. Not the house. Not the routine. Not the version of her I once loved. She'd made her choice. And now finally I was making mine. 2 months passed. Not a single message. Not a phone call. Not even an accidental like on social media. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted it, that she'd moved on with Chris or at least buried the need to dig through the ashes. But then on a rainy Sunday evening there was a knock at my door. I opened it and there she was. Emily stood soaked to the bone, no umbrella, makeup running slightly from the rain. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me with that same pleading expression I used to fall for. I didn't invite her in. I've made a mistake, she said quietly. A real one. Not just what I did, but what I thought I could fix. I waited. I ended it. With him. Weeks ago. I couldn't keep pretending. I've been in therapy. I've been trying to figure out why I blew up everything we had. Her voice was trembling. I miss you, Ryan. I miss us. I still hadn't said a word. Then came the offer. Let's start over. No baggage. Clean slate. I'll do whatever it takes. I looked at her, really looked. And I realized I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not pain. Just clarity. You're not the woman I thought I married, I said calmly. And I'm not the man who's going to save you from the mess you made. She opened her mouth, maybe to beg again, maybe to argue. But I stepped back and gently closed the door. That was it. No shouting. No final kiss. Just rain against the glass and the quietest kind of closure. I moved to Portland. Started a small logistics company, nothing flashy, just something honest. My apartment is small but has a view of the river. Every morning starts with silence and coffee. No drama. No noise. Sometimes I still think about her. Not with longing, just like remembering a storm you drove through. The kind that felt endless until you were finally out of it. I don't date much. I'm not closed off, just peaceful. I've rebuilt my life slowly, piece by piece, with no one's permission but my own. I stopped explaining myself. Stopped making room for people who only show up when it's easy. I live simply now. I work hard. I sleep better. I wake up knowing I'm not being lied to. That I don't have to check someone's phone or decode a late-night text. For the first time in years, my life belongs to me. And no one will ever take that away again.